More Mariner from Rover, and in this video we're going to take a look at the yellow line for Mariner, but before that a basic explanation of how the class works. With Mariner you have a balance attunement bar, and the middle part is called the steady state, and then you have different skills that will build either towards the aft, which is backwards towards the left, or skills that will build forward, which is forwards to the right. And the base idea is that you never want to go too far to the right or not too far to the left, because you will get some debuffs on you and you will get stunned. So if you're DPSing, you want to kind of stay in this area and not go too far. And if you're going to the aft part with more defensive minded and buffing, you want to stay in this area. So really simply, you want to be in this middle part of the bar. You never want to go too far this way or too far this way. And right now we have not traded into any of the specs, so that means we have all the baseline Mariner skills on our bars right now. I'm just quickly going to go through them. You do get the Sail 2 skills, so Mariner does have port skills. We don't know if they're fellowship or just single target yet, but you will get plenty of Sail skills, so you can port around as a Mariner. You'll also notice that there's a theme in the coloring. Blue colored skills typically build towards the aft. The same goes for healing, which is green, and CC, which is yellow, typically build towards the aft, and the red skills are typically the skills that build towards the fore. So the first skill we have is to toss a bottle. There's a simple single target heal. You have Fizzling Rocks, which deals damage, and it's a frontal AoE attack, which interrupts inductions. Sludge Pot is a ranged AoE skill that will debuff and damage your enemies. Belly of Brine is your self-cleanse. Salt Cure is your corruption removal skill. Flick is your base interrupt skill. You have a skill called Rummage, and using Rummage will give you a skill out of 5. There's 5 different skills that can randomly appear, and you have 10 seconds to use that skill before the skill turns back to Rummage. So Rummage Stone is what I got for the first time. It's going to turn back to Rummage. I click it again. This time I got a Rummage Knife. And there's a couple of stuns in there, a couple of heals, and also a damage over time with the knife. So Rummage is more of a fun random skill rather than a practical skill that you can use. You have 2 different toggle skills, Shanty Steady Aft and Shanty Steady Fore. Using one of these will help your pips move towards the right or left. So for example, if I use Shanty Steady Fore, it will slowly tick towards the right and help me build more towards the fore. If you want to build the other way, you do Shanty Steady Aft. Sea Legs is your basic breakout skill to break out of any CC. On the next line we have Recenter. Recenter is a skill that will set you towards the middle, so if you're far into the right or left and use Recenter, it will go straight to the middle. And this skill gets enabled by using finishers. Now before moving on to all the next skills, the way that Mariner will work is that most of your skills will give you a 10-second duration buff, which will affect your next skill. So using one skill, it will have some buffs on it that will affect the next skill, and so on and so on and so on. So you always need to think about which order you do your skills in, because they give different buffs to the next skill. So Blade Shield, it gives you 25% parry chance, but also riposte 50% damage, or step back damage reduction 15% on your next attack. On guard gives you 5% run speed. It will heal some power, give 50% parry skill parry chance, and 100% thrust damage on your next attack. Step back gives you 25% partial evade chance, and your next attack disengage gains a heal, and riposte enrages a target. And enraging the target in this instance means that the target, if it's ranged, it'll be forced to go into melee. And disengage is your baseline aft finisher skill, and using this skill will give you 10% both mitigations for 10 seconds and also 30% run speed for 10 seconds. And at the bottom of the bar we have the 4 skills. You have the North Wind, dealing damage and debuffing the attack duration of your enemies. Thrust deals damage and it gives 30% advanced damage to your next attack, or 50% step back partial evade chance. Riposte is a damaging attack that buffs your advanced damage by 30%. Advance is a 2 attack skill that gives 50% finisher skills damage to your next attack. and gives plus 15% dramatic flourish critical magnitude buff. Aggressive strike is a damaging attack that gives 10% to disengage mitigations. And finally we have the baseline 4 finisher. Lunge is a big hitting finishing skill that deals a lot of damage. So with that out of the way, we're gonna look at the Rover, the Yellow Line Mariner, and the description reads, uses anything on hand to hinder foes. Rovers embrace the traveling lifestyle of a mariner, exploring distant lands and collecting rare materials and strange baubles. In a pinch, they are also capable of turning these odds and ends into devices for confounding and weakening their foes. Skills earned: Draining Strike, Thrum of the Sea, and Aggressive Strike becomes Debilitating Strike. So we're going to go ahead and spec into this. We can see that Aggressive Strike changes to Debilitating Strike, and Debilitating Strike gains an effect, which is a 15-second 15% damage reduction on your target. So this is a 15-second cooldown and 15-second duration. So if you're playing the Yellow Mariner, you're able to keep a 15% outgoing damage debuff on a target, so basically working like Fire and Frostlore, only that it's only on one target and you have to use it every 15 seconds to keep it up. Thrum of the Sea is kind of like a blinding flash that we know from Yellow Loremaster, 15-second daze with a 40-second cooldown. The Draining Strike is a finishing skill that deals damage, but also drains power from your target. So the way that we're going to do this with the trait line, I'm going to start top left, go right, and then keep going left to right. And I'm also going to look at the set bonuses once they unlock. So starting up with the top left, we get Entangling Lines. This gives you a skill called Throw Bolas. And this is basically like a Herblore that we know from Yellow Loremaster. 7 targets and a 15-second root, giving you the ability to root enemies. We have a trait called Natural Explorer, giving you some extra fate stats. The first set bonus is Caustic Brew, one of the strongest debuffs that a Yellow Mariner can have. Gonna hit apply, and as you can see from the Caustic Brew, it is a 7-target skill. It's ranged, so you can throw it from range and also AoE, and it debuffs the tactical and physical mitigations for 5 seconds. Shocking Counterattack is a trait that will give Advance a stun after using a Riposte. So if you then do a Riposte, it has a 100% chance for Advance to stun your opponent after a Riposte. So Riposte into Advance will stun your enemy if you trait Shocking Counterattack. Spitting Spirits will give you a skill called the Breath of Fire, and it is a 7-target AoE skill, dealing damage and putting a dot on the targets. And this skill will also change if you go to the aft side. It will change to Breath of Ice, and Breath of Ice will put a 50% slow on your targets. We also unlocked the next set bonus, 10% daze and root durations, meaning that skills like Thrum of the Sea and Throw Bolas gets 10 seconds increase to their effects. Rare Ingredients will change your cleansing skill to be called Cleansing Spirits, and more points into it, it'll clear more effects. So this is now targetable, Cleansing Spirits, and it can cleanse up to, I believe, 3 max if you put all points into it. The next set bonus is Explosive Lunge, which gives your lunge the ability to start a Fellowship maneuver if it's used after Debilitating Strike. So Debilitating Strike into Lunge will give you a Fellowship maneuver, but Lunge will be on a 1-minute cooldown, so there is a cost to using that. There's a Thrown Object trait that doesn't seem to do anything right now. I also heard rumblings that this might get removed. Encouraging Presence increases your outgoing healing modifier. Fighting Smarter gives you more temporary damage reduction from aftward balance. And what that means is once you go to the aftward, the Mariner gets a damage reduction buff to them. And if you trait this, then your damage reduction is even stronger. A couple of new trait set bonuses. Pitch Pot is a new skill that we earned. And Pitch Pot is kind of similar to Caustic Brew, only it only debuffs tactical mitigations. The Rare Herbs trait set bonus will make your cleansing skill do a heal for each effect that you cleanse. The Cleansing Spirit is also raid-wide, but you need to be within 5 meters. So if you're targeting someone else, like if I target this person, it would cleanse that person and the people within 5 meters, so you have to be kind of close if you want to cleanse more people. The dense padding trait gives you extra mitigations. There is the bitter north wind, giving a incoming healing reduction to your north wind skill. So north wind will debuff incoming healing as well. Corrosive salt makes caustic brew even stronger for the first 10 seconds, just like we know from the lore master with the enfeeble trait. And as we can see, for the first 10 seconds, caustic brew will be 15% both mids, and then after that you will return to the 10% both mids for the remainder of the effect. Many Hands makes your shanties restore power to your allies. Strong Arms increases the range of your thrown skills. The final trait set bonus we will look at later, Jugglery Proficiency. Yellow Mariner also gets a Fear. Coordinated Movement gives you the ability to, after using Step Back or Check Step, whatever it's called, this skill, when that is used, followed by Disengage, it will heal your fellowship. Novel Compounds gives you the skill Volatile Assaults, which basically works like a Bane Flare, 20-second days and 7 targets. It is also ranged, so you can throw it from far away. Careful Aim makes your thrown skill become ground targeted. For example, the Caustic Brew is now ground targeted if you want to target it on the ground instead of targeting off an enemy. Enervating Counter gives you a nice incoming damage debuff on the target. If you use Blade Shield into Riposte, the Riposte will apply a debuff, and that debuff is 5% incoming damage for 15 seconds, meaning you can keep a 100% uptime on this incoming damage debuff. So basically a telling mark that you can use for free as a Yellow Mariner. Masterful Disarm reduces the cooldown of Debilitating Strike, but also Debilitating Strike will disarm your target when used after Advance. So if you use Advance into Debilitating Strike with this traded, you will disarm your opponents. And the final capstone traits for the Yellow Mariner. You have Traveler giving you the Steady Traveler skill, which is basically a 3-minute cooldown, big heal, giving you 10% steady movement speed, and 15% temporary damage reduction from afterward balance. So basically a big survivability self cooldown. The other capstone trait in yellow is called a Watched Pot, which gives you the ability to reduce the skills cooldown of your haversack skills by hitting critical hits with your swordplay skills. So that pretty much concludes the yellow line. As you can see, there's a lot of similarities with yellow lore master, and I can definitely imagine that if you're a good yellow mariner, there will be a spot in a raid for you. I can definitely see it either replacing a burglar or replacing a lore master, or even being added to the mix as a third support. The question now is, what type of yellow mariner will you play? At this point, will you dip into red line to get some more personal DPS? Or do you dig into blue for some more support? That's a good question, and that's something that's really great about the mariner class. There's a lot of different ways to trade, and it's going to be fun to see what people figure out with their trade lines. And just finally, I wanted to show the last trade set bonus skill, the Jugglery Proficiency. This is a toggle skill, and if you toggle this skill, your haversack skills gains an ability. As we can see, there's a 30% chance to apply a 15-second duration, so minus 15% outgoing damage, just like Lore's, but also at a cost of minus incoming damage. So you deal less damage to the target, but the target deals less damage to you. So there's like a trade-off, and the 30% chance to apply, as far as I know, can be increased with traceries. So this is something you would toggle if you want to debuff the outgoing damage of a lot of enemies. So overall, my overall thoughts of the Yellow Mariner is that out of the 3 lines, I think Yellow Mariner might have the hardest time getting into a raid setting. I see the idea behind it, I can definitely see it doing a good job in a raid, and there's of course a need for testing to see how it fares in a raid. Do you go yellow-red? Do you go yellow-blue? Do you go like a mix, yellow into red a bit, into blue a bit? It's going to be fun to figure out, but that's my first look at the Yellow Mariner. If you have any questions, make sure to drop them in the comments, and thank you for watching my Mariner videos.
Hey! Hey you! Yeah, you. What do you want? You enjoy my content and you want to support me?
Fine, I'll show you how you can do it. I would really appreciate if you like the video and subscribe to my channel. You can also support me through my Ko-fi homepage. If you're playing or looking to play Lord of the Rings online, there is one place you need to be. The Ghyniverse is a Discord server created for the community of the players of Lord of the Rings Online. The server is getting close to 7,000 members, and in this server you'll find tons of helpful information. There's monthly giveaways, easy access to patch notes, you can keep up with my YouTube videos, my streams. If you're a streamer, you can ask for the streamer role and you can announce your streams in the other stream channel. There are discussion channels for pretty much everything, every class, monster players. But the best thing about this server is probably the Gearing Resources tab, where you can find anything from trait lines for every class, every build. There are stat goals, where you can find out what stats you should aim for on your characters. Really helpful information about drop rates from instances, as well as screenshot from all the new loot that appears in the game. If you enjoy LOTRO, you should definitely consider joining this server, and hopefully I'll see you in Middle-earth. If you were part of the Ghyniverse already, you might have noticed that another tab appeared at the top, the LFF server. This server is a brand new server that I created, the LFF Ghyniverse. In this server, you can select which servers you want to keep up with, and once you select your server, say you select Arkenstone, you will see the LFF, the kinship advertisement, looking for kinship and trade channels, and there's also voice channels if people want to use those. The LFF channel is basically a looking for fellowship channel where people can post if they need players for the runs, and this way people don't have to be logged into the game to see the chat. They can just instead get a notification on their Discord. There's also a kinship advertisement page where kins can post their kinship advertisement and have people join their kins, and you can also post in the looking for kinship chat if you're looking for a kinship, but make sure to take a look in the kinship advertisement first and look through all the kin to find a suitable kin for you. There's also a trade channel if people want to buy or sell stuff that you can use. Hopefully you'll consider joining this server to bring the community even more together, not just in the game, but also outside of the game.